So Shalom, and thank you for taking the time and speaking to us. It's obviously a personal project of yours, doing so much for this film, and I wonder why this specific story.
Um, well, it started with the character for me because he's just so unique, and also he does that thing that I think great characters like Forrest Gump and Rain Man do, in the sense that he's an underdog, but you're pulling for him. You see his strengths and his qualities underneath this kind of chaotic condition that he's got, and I think when you can root for a character like that, it reminds you, it connects you to your empathy, and I think audiences, like when you're rooting for the underdog, there's something that is enjoyable about that, especially if he's rising and kind of triumphs in the end, right?
The movie is doing a brilliant job with focusing on the disability, but not making it the main issue. And I wonder, was that any concern by people surrounding you that it might be not so much of a good idea commercially?
No, I wasn't overly concerned about that because I think his strengths and the qualities that make him kind of heroic are very apparent. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a great tradition of, I think, of celebrating people who are unique and remind, I think those films have a very positive effect. They remind people not to not to be reductive and not to be dismissive of other people, and to celebrate sort of difference. And I think that's but also, honestly, I think in a movie like this, what starts to happen is the drama of what's going on, the crimes and the violence and the murder and the mystery start to pull you along, and in a way he becomes your vehicle for going into this much bigger story, that has its own satisfactions too.
Was I the only one who was sitting and watching the film and saying, there's a clear message here about politics now, about corruption of power? Was that something intentional?
Sure, but to me, if it resonates now, that's great, because I think the things it's cautioning against are timeless. I think they never go away. That's why honestly I think noir films, not just detective noir, but the idea films that remind us that we have our values, we have our ideals, we're all going along trusting the system, right? But noir films remind us, like, we have to look in the shadows sometimes, and if we don't pay attention to what's really going on underneath, damage is going to get done. People are going to get hurt, lives are going to get ruined, and corruption and power and sexual abuse and greed, and these things have to be confronted. And I think the reason we like these films is the detectives in them are sort of like us. They don't know what's going on, and the more they start to sniff what's going on, they get more and more intolerant of
Right.
it. And I think that's healthy. That kind of political reminder that, like, we have to stay attentive to what's taking place, or we're going to lose.
And I say I have time only for one more question, and I'm very curious hearing your take about the movie industry now, because you've been a part of several amazing movies, iconic movies, and you're doing this movie now, putting yourself into it. But the landscape is changing. We see more and more superhero movies. We have the streaming networks coming in. How do you see that? You decided to go old school, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny. We started making this before the streaming networks were also starting to give the film some theater time and things. Otherwise, maybe we would have made our lives easier and done it that way. I don't know. I'm not against any of it. I think that it's, the business, in a way, the privilege of being an artist or being the creator of things is the business models can change and be challenged and shift, but if you're a creator, what you are interested in is there opportunity, and within these changes, I actually think there is increased opportunity. I think the there's I think it's easier today for people with an interesting story to get it made. Now is it as easy to get it made in a theatrical, releasing traditional cinema kind of format? No. I would say that's getting harder for films like this. But I think in general, I think there's more diversity of voices, and there's more formats, in the sense of long form storytelling. 4 parts, 1 part, one big long one like Scorsese's film, series. It's a very rich moment in terms of the ways you can tell a story and the kinds of stories you can tell. So I think you have to always stay, as an artist, you got to stay liberated about your idea of how do I want to tell the story. Does it have to be in a cinema multiplex? Like, if you get hung up on that, I think things are harder. If you're not hung up on that, I think it's a really exciting time.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you. I love